Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike the Cranky Fan, and welcome to a first ever in the history of the show playoff clinching episode. If I still had my New Year's noisemakers, I'd be blowing the party favor thing right into the mic.
For the first time, Grump, we can have a little X next to our name. You know, when they look in the newspaper and they show the standings and you see like the 49ers or the Cowboys or something, it's an X when that means clinch playoff spot. So
yeah, not the E for eliminated.
Yeah. So, we said this at the game yesterday, 12 months ago, almost to the day, we were watching the Giants, take a knee on third down inside their own 5-yard line and wondering if this has been the lowest point, certainly of modern Giants history. But to be here 12 months later and talking about having a week 17 that's utterly meaningless for us, it's really fascinating.
It really is something. And it's also, I know we have some recent history with a first-year head coach taking a team to the playoffs, but before we get into the game itself, I do want to underscore the difference between taking over the 2021 Giants with an unknown at quarterback, generally considered a nationally considered lower-tier quarterback at the time. Lots of cap problems all over the place. Taking that team and bringing them to the playoffs is not really the same as taking the 2015 Giants, which had battled back and were almost in the playoffs in 2015, despite not having JPP for half the year, and having a Hall of Fame quarterback. Despite whatever age concerns you had about Eli Manning in 2015, 2016, he was not a noodle arm at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So huge difference between what Ben McAdoo accomplished and what Brian Daboll accomplished.
Yeah,
would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when Ben McAdoo got here, we weren't throwing the words around rebuild and roster purge and, this is going to take time to redo. Not at all. When and you have to put Brian Daboll with Joe Schoen and with Mike Kapka, everybody's brought at the same time to tear this thing down and start over. Because remember, we got rid of guys in this offseason that we had to just to get under the cap, and they made some pretty significant personnel moves that, kind of flew in the face of logic a little bit, like Logan Ryan getting cut. Because they wanted to start by building a culture on this team. And just a funny thing happened along the way to building culture. They started winning games and kept winning games. And there was a kind of a late season lull and they snapped back. And we are not falling into a playoff spot. We're not backing into a playoff spot. We've earned a playoff spot. And, if Brian Daboll should be a finalist, if not the winner for Coach of the Year, just on that alone, by taking this group, this roster that, has some stars, has some real talent, but really is in the beginning stages of a rebuild. And it's just kudos to all these guys for doing this year.
Yeah, I think was my prediction 2 weeks ago that they would start to build their momentum after beating Washington. They were going to beat Washington and then they were going to steamroll the Colts. Wasn't that my prediction a couple weeks ago? Sort
of like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was something along those lines. I think that's what we're seeing here. Just like you were saying, there was a little bit of a lull in the late bit of the season there, where I think two very unnecessary injuries kind of culminated then along with the regular wear and tear this season.
And the schedule got tougher too. We played some difficult teams in that stretch.
True.
This is not, we are celebrating, we are making the playoffs, but I don't think anybody realistically thinks that this team is going to the Super Bowl.
No, I don't. I actually don't agree with that now that we look at it. Detroit is right on par with Green Bay and Seattle come the end of the year right now.
Okay.
So I mean, Detroit was Detroit and Seattle were both in that stretch of bad games, but Green Bay was not. I think it is just kind of injuries and getting tired. I think it was really just that they kind of broke down a little bit there.
Well, there was a Dallas and a Philly in there too in that stretch.
Yeah, but those were the same losses, I guess. The Philly, the Philly. You're right. You're right.
The strength of schedule got harder during that period than right now.
But regardless, they are not going backwards into the playoffs, as you said. They are getting healthy at the right time. They're building momentum. They pretty much just beat the living shit out of the Indianapolis Colts, and that brings us to this game, 38-10. The offense scores more than 30 points for the first time since forever. Oh wait, did they? Yes, they did. 31 points on offense, 7 points for the defense. A defense that only gave up 10 points as well. An absolute shellacking. I would say this was over by before halftime.
Oh yeah, I mean they had like a bomb that was basically like was a glorified punt that they completed, which they still only got 3 points off of. I mean that was most of their offense for a big chunk of the first half was that one play. I mean it was a total team effort, and they were feeding off a crowd that was ready to have a party. It kind of felt like a little like the old stadium for one of the very first times since MetLife has been built. We had a different perspective, Grump and I. We weren't in our normal seats. We splurged and we got club seats, and that was a much more rowdier crowd than we're used to, down in our normal seats. And it definitely felt like, it felt like the old days.
This was an interesting game because it had all the makings for a classic Giants Stadium crowd. And, we called out the crowd and Giants fans specifically a couple of weeks ago. So I guess kudos here. There is an audible feel. So if you go through, this is kind of just something I do, just watch highlights of every single game or whatever. And I also watch the Giants game highlights in the same kind of way. And, just kind of get the feel. That first Richie James touchdown, that crowd erupted. Mm-hmm. And in the context of all the other games around the league, is like one of the loudest celebrations in the whole week worth of games. And it had all the makings for it, right? There was a 50-degree day, although it was New Year's Day, so you're probably going to get normal. That's a rougher turnout, I guess.
A little hangover-ish.
But I guess a lot of people do have off on Monday, so maybe that did help. But the 50-degree weather definitely helps. The fact that it's an AFC opponent that's already knocked out, it's not really a team that has fans that travel real well that I know of.
There was a smidgen of guys wearing Manning jerseys, but
very
like
I mean
10, 15 years ago.
I don't even think 5% of the crowd.
No.
It was a very low amount of visiting fans. And the stadium was packed to the gills this week. Mm-hmm. It really was a true looking sellout. And it was fantastic. It was loud. It was a great game. Was this the best one in recent memory?
I was kind of thinking about that. Was like the last real beating the Giants have put on somebody that,
But also, like, within context too, like beating the shit out of some team in week 17 that's also eliminated from the playoffs, and it has no feeling to it, right? You're like, okay, cool, that was kind of awesome. I can't wait till next year, I guess.
But even that, we've had so little of those because we're in a situation where we're out of it. We usually stink, and we're right at the finish line.
Yeah, like I try and think, like there's that one Washington game that was like week 17 or something like that where Barkley had like 200 plus yards on the ground alone, or something like that. I know he took like the wheel route up there, but I think we didn't make the playoffs anyway. I think that was the same year that the Eagles tanked and we didn't make it. So like even that beating of Washington, just like it's forgettable, it's lifeless. It has nothing to it. This game was fantastic, and it had everything. Going right off it, let's just start with the offense because that's gonna be. Daniel Jones played magnificent. Not a super heavy workload. I guess would you consider 24 passes a heavy workload passing the ball?
Well, I mean, based on circumstance, I mean, we were up pretty big. There was really no reason to pass.
That's a good point. Yeah, but
Um,
but
and
he certainly had a heavy workload running the ball with
yeah,
11 carries.
it just seemed like a game. It didn't seem like we were being run heavy or pass heavy or anything. It was just like, okay, it would have been nice if MetLife actually puts up stats during the game so we kind of know, so we don't have to go to our phones every 30 seconds. But another reason we love that stadium so much. But no, I mean, I just think that we've been saying this the last couple episodes. He's finally got complete control of this offense. There's no training wheels on him. I give all the credit in the world to Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll for getting the most out of they can with this offense with the weapons that they do have. They're not trying to do things they know aren't physically possible based on these wide receivers. Um, but within the limitations they have, they are doing everything they can, and they are getting as much water out of these rocks as they can. And it's, that's a testament to scheme, play calling, decision making by the quarterback, and execution by the guys that are playing. So I give their collective star to the offense, top to bottom.
Wow, a collective star from top to bottom. And I'm giving Daniel Jones a star specifically. I completely agree with you. It looks like he is in complete control of this offense. He looks comfortable in an offense for the first time in a long time. I feel like we've probably said that on the podcast in the past in different offenses. But this looks like something that he can build on that's going to be here. Like, that takes full advantage of his skills. Maybe perhaps we'd like some more deep shots, but we are dealing with rough personnel right now.
Yeah.
But Daniel Jones, 19 of 24, 177 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns throwing the ball, 11 rushes for 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Smart runs, in my opinion, on the broadcast. There was a lot of criticism about him taking unnecessary hits. I kind of disagree. I thought everything he took was within reason. I think he protected the ball well as well.
That's who he is as a runner. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, I know there's other people out there who are like, he has to learn how to slide. That's just who he is. I mean, Tim Tebow is a similar guy where he just ran. That was his style of running. And, the odds of him getting hurt by just running and getting tackled are not as much as, getting blindsided, from poor tackle play, for example, or
Correct.
a blindside hit. I mean, this is what his special sauce is his ability to run. And if he's going to get hurt, that's just kind of the risk we have to take, because if that's not part of his game, he is a very average to probably below average quarterback. This is his special sauce.
I completely agree with you. I thought he started the game a little sketchy. A couple of errant throws in the first 2 drives. Maybe wasn't super crisp, but literally everything after that was pretty much perfect. And his best throw of the day might be an underrated one. I think it's the drive right before the end of the half. He's first play of the drive. He's like getting tackled. Makes a great throw before hitting the ground to Daniel Bellinger. It was fantastic, but he was just lightning all over the field. The other one was the touchdown throw to Richie James. His pocket feel and pocket presence is by far his most improved trait this year.
Oh, God.
And I know that he's got much better tackle play, and that is a huge part of it. He does not. Andrew Thomas's development can't be understated. Evan Neal's addition can't be understated, though. I mean, he is a rookie, and getting his feet wet as well. But it is clear and evident, if you've ever watched Daniel Jones in the past, how different he is feeling the pressure in the pocket and moving and escaping it. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I also thought that Richie James had a fantastic day. 7 catches on 7 targets for 76 yards, the touchdown as well. He's just, I don't know. How would you describe him? Like a wide receiver 4 or 5 probably in most NFL offenses?
Yeah, I'm thinking if we had, our full complement of receivers, he would be, he'd be a very dynamic piece to be, if you have your cornerback 1 and 2 covering guys like Sterling Shepard.
Yeah.
For example, and not having to worry about him, he could be even more dangerous. And, He's being very effective. He's catching everything he needs to catch. People are not around his shrieking anymore because they think he might drop something. And he's doing everything we're asking him to do. And that's all he really can do with these receivers right now.
Would you feel? I mean, I guess we're seeing it right now. All we really need out of a guy like Richie James is to feel like there won't be a massive drop off if you lose Wan'Dale Robinson for a short stretch of time. I mean, obviously, there's no real prepared plan for losing a starter for a giant stretch of time. At that point, you just kind of have to make do with what you got. So that's usually what you look for, and he is way outplaying that.
Yeah,
I mean, this feels like
we lost 2 starters for long stretches this year. I mean,
yeah,
right now Richie James, right now he's wide receiver 1 on this team, and this is not going to be a dynamic passing game with these receivers. We know that there's not that big play capability downfield. We know that. So if you don't have that, you have to make sure you can catch everything that's thrown to you, and be sure and make sure if it's 3rd and 7, get to the sticks, catch the ball, move the chains. That's how, you don't have big scoring, quick strike capability. Do exactly what this offense is doing now. It's, move the chains, eat clock. We said that during this game. Remember, we said we need a nice 7-minute drive here, late first half, I think it was.
Yeah.
We pretty much got that by doing just those things. That's going to be our key to winning with this 2022 roster.
Other receivers of note, Isaiah Hodgins had a touchdown, 4 catches on 5 targets for 42 yards, continues to be a reliable target, a good route runner. Daniel Bellinger, 3 catches on 3 targets for 42 yards, had probably the best catch of the day, converting a 3rd and 7 for like 10 yards of outstretched hands catch over the middle was fantastic. Darius Slayton gets a fart for me. 2 catches on 3 targets, and this is a pretty, no, I don't know. 2 catches on 3 targets for only 14 yards. One of those catches was a fumble, first play of the 3rd quarter. Good thing that you're already up 28-3 at that time, but can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, Slayton is Slayton. He's been unreliable the entire time he's been with this team. I've never been a fan of him. He's probably outkicked his coverage, at times this year, but
that's a little harsh. This is all a little harsh, but
what's that?
Just
but I've been pretty consistent in that criticism. This year, last year, year before. I've never been a fan of his really, and
I still think he's probably the best receiver on the roster right now. That's not on IR.
He might. How do you define that? I mean, I don't think he's the most consistent. I don't think he's the most reliable.
No,
he might be capable of making the biggest splash play, or the one guy most likely to bust something out for a long touchdown run catch or something. But I don't know. I've never had him in the trust zone, and I know I even said to you during the game, are they actually kind of phasing him out a little bit, because it seems like the more of the targets go to Hodgins and to Richie James than him.
I think it just depends on the opponent. I think that they have their more preferred underneath options are going to be Bellinger, Hodgins, and James, and I think their more over the top options are going to be Hodgins and Slayton. So I think Indianapolis is just going to sit back in 2 deep, and when you have why test that deep when you can just do something underneath?
Yeah.
So I think it's just a situational thing, especially when you consider the lead. There was no reason to test deep.
Of course,
or anything like that.
I did make that comment though earlier in the game.
You did. No, you did.
Yeah.
Overall, I would say I'd give it one more star out, just generally speaking, the blocking. And not just the offensive line, tight ends, the wide receivers, downfield blocking. Not everything was perfect. Guys were pulling. I mean, there was some stuff where guys didn't know who to block because there was nobody there. The blocking was going so well. There were some others where guys pulling couldn't quite get there. But overall, I would say this looked like a fantastic day for Giants blocking. It was not perfect, but this is one of the better games that we've seen.
I just am proud of this team because coming off, a disappointing Minnesota game, not the way they play, but just the result, like a 61 yarder is kind of a gut puncher in this playoff battle, and to come out and be you know, all cylinders firing from the initial snap. This team was prepared mentally, physically to play, and they did it. And that gives a star to me, to this coaching staff, and to the captains of this team too. That was take care of business and let's get into the playoffs officially and move on with their lives. And they made a statement by doing it.
Well said, man. I mean, we were afraid that this was going to be like let them hang around kind of situation, play it conservative, play it safe, don't do anything to lose the game. Nah, they went out there, they took care of business like you said, and they continued to put the boots to them. Mm-hmm. They were not letting them get up at all. I mean, I guess worth mentioning, they didn't even have their starting quarterback by the second half, who's, their backup.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So we'll flip it to the defense.
Right.
I'm going to give him a star anyway for the performance. Kayvon Thibodeau, 5 tackles, 4 of which were solo, the sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and 1 pass breakup that was nearly a pick six on a beautiful play. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, he started off the season, a little banged up. It took him a while to get fully healthy, but you see potential in this guy to be one of those guys, if you watch around the league, just a complete dominating force that, you have to account for at every second. And, we'll talk about the Snow Angel thing. That's what this league encourages. They specifically set up cameras in end zones. So when you have an interception or a fumble, you have a bunch of assholes making poses and completely canned things. So every player is it's all about me and all about this showing off business. And if coaches don't like it, this is what this league wants. They like that showmanship. And, so Jeff Saturday can eat a dick for all I can. First of all, the guy shouldn't even be a coach in this league. And, if you think that's Bush League or whatever, just be thankful you even have this job. Maybe you should be spending a little more time worrying about why none of one of your players are standing up for their quarterback while he's, doing his histrionics. But that aside, that was a devastating hit. And he's a guy that, you better game plan very significantly for. And the more that people pay attention to him, we have 3 other guys on that front that can cause a lot of damage, put pressure on the quarterback, especially with this Wink Martindale defense that, we'll talk later about, contracts and future things, but this is shaping up to be a pretty devastating front four going forward. Rest of this playoffs and into, next year and beyond.
Man, you're not kidding. And the front four, well, I mean, this was a mostly rest day for Azeez Ojulari. Only got like 5 snaps or something like that. But even so, Jahad Ward is having a fantastic year. So they are all heating up pretty well. And I think it's like a weekly thing. We could give a star to Dexter Lawrence. Literally every week, I think. 5 tackles, 4 solo today. The sack he had was on Quentin Nelson. Just absolutely bullied him. Just walked him right back into the quarterback and took them both out. Literally tackled an offensive lineman and a quarterback at the same time. Had 3 quarterback hits on the day. We got to talk about Landon Collins.
We had debates whether you re-sign him or not, and our consensus was that he's kind of a one-dimensional guy, not very good in pass coverage. And what does he do? Gets a pick six. Fantastic.
Yeah. Great for him. It's got to be nice. He was signed here way back in October, didn't really get any significant playing time, super humble, takes the position change, which I'm sure he didn't love the idea of. Pretty much essentially an inside linebacker at this point, though still playing kind of an in-the-box defensive back role in Wink Martindale's defense, but still, nonetheless, certainly playing for a lot less money than he was just, signed for a couple of years ago at Washington. Sure. Huge play, comes into the game for injured Darnay Holmes, and for the first play just takes it to the house, reads the route the whole way. I like that little interior combo of Tony Jefferson and him. couple of hitters back there, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, really,
Landon
really cool
Collins.
stuff.
Landon Collins is the only Giant on this roster who was a Giant last time they were in the playoffs.
No.
Yes.
Sterling Shepard.
Well, he's not active.
Well, he's on IR, but I mean, he is on the roster. But yeah.
Okay.
That's funny because he showed up halfway through the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and that was the last time was that no, that wasn't the last time the Giants themselves had a pick six, was it? Can't be.
Can't be.
No, that can't be. No, not even close.
Yeah.
Janoris Jenkins had one in Denver. There's a million other ones, I'm sure. But other guys on defense. I think just generally this was a game where you knew that they were going to be running the ball a lot, and they weren't that great against the run. 128 yards they gave up on the ground, but they also weren't bad against the run.
Mm-hmm. Well, also a lot of that too. If you remember, in the third quarter, they had a long drive. Indy,
yep.
A lot of it was on the ground, backup quarterback too. So it's like you're kind of okay with that. Like,
absolutely. It was like a 7-minute drive.
Yeah, if you want to chew up 7 minutes and you're down 21 points or whatever it was, be my guest. So I'm not overly concerned about the numbers this week. The goal was you don't want to give up a big play and, give them 7 points just like that. So
right, correct. Yeah. But in general, there's no that plan doesn't work if the tackling isn't very good. And a couple of weeks ago, that was specifically something that we were calling out, and we've been watching it get better, commenting on how it's been getting better week to week. It was fantastic. It was good. I keep saying the word fantastic tonight.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
it was a great game. I rewatched it twice.
Sure.
Overall, I didn't really have a defensive fart. I mean, the one bad play was the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I can't really think of anything else that was super egregious or...
No.
Even the touchdown that they scored with, I think Fabian Moreau had a legitimate gripe for offensive pass interference.
I think we both said that at the time, too.
It looked like he did. And, shitty CBS broadcast, absolutely terrible. No replays of anything. So you only get the one replay. It's, in the corner of the screen, and it's a bad camera angle. But it kind of just looks like he hooks him with his arm and just throws him and then breaks the opposite direction. Really, at that point in the game, not really any reason for the officials to throw a flag on that. I mean, right. I know a flag is a flag, penalty's a penalty, but game was moving super fast. Kind of doesn't matter. That was at the very end of that 7-minute drive. They're still down 21 at the end of it. Doesn't matter. I have no other comments on the game itself.
As we kind of move on from the game, do you feel like this team, the way they've been playing lately, and I'll throw the last 3 games into it, never mind the final results. Does this team to you feel like a playoff team, like we can actually do some damage in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think so. And we'll get into playoff scenarios at the end of this episode.
Mm-hmm. Just like your State of the Union, like in 10 words.
But absolutely. I mean, why not? I mean, here we are. I want Minnesota, and that is looking like it's going to be the case. And they just barely lost to Minnesota, and then following that, beat the shit out of another team. I mean, to me, that alone, considering the time frame and the guys that are getting healthy and the guys that didn't play in those games, yeah, they look like a team that could win. If you can win one playoff game, that's making some noise, especially when you're a wild card.
Sure.
Not winning your division, might not get double-digit wins this year. That's making some noise. So there's a legitimate chance they can knock off the number 2 seed. Then yes, they do. To me, yeah. What about you? You don't think so?
The way they played the last, really, I guess since the rematch at Washington. Think about, this whole conference seems like it could, even if Jalen Hurts comes back, is he going to be 100% coming back? Because, they look like the same team without him. We can debate all we want how great he is individually, but, right now Philadelphia is in a position where the Week 17 matters to them now, all of a sudden. Dallas, do we really trust Dak Prescott at this moment? I don't know. I mean, San Francisco is complete of a team as they look, still have a third string quarterback. Minnesota, we saw them up close 2 weeks ago, and we're not impressed with them very much.
Well, why don't we just talk about this? Why don't we just do this now? Let's just talk about the playoff scenario. So
Let's do it.
right now, the teams in the hunt, and they are Philadelphia, San Francisco, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Dallas, the Giants, Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay. Those are all the teams that are possible. Of those, which teams don't you really want to play?
I would say right now I do not want to play San Francisco. I would not want to play Philadelphia.
No,
I think
me either.
because I think by the time we would get to Philadelphia, I think Hurts would be closer to 100%. And that team again, they boat raced us the first time. Again, we were in that low we were mentioning before, but they'll be playing in Philadelphia. That fan base is going to be foaming at the mouth with the sight of New Yorkers coming down there and everything. And that whole franchise has a hard on for us anyway. So I'd say those are the two that really scare me. Dallas, I know I did say a lot during the season they scare me a lot, but Dak is not playing well. A lot of picks lately. I think they might be a little soft, and I also think there's a coaching advantage with us over Dallas. And then when you get to like teams like Tampa Bay, and then any of the other like kind of the wild card teams, none of those teams really scare me.
I don't know. Of all the teams that the teams I wouldn't mind playing are Minnesota, Tampa Bay, and Seattle. I don't mind a rematch with Seattle or Minnesota. Minnesota, I actually want. Tampa Bay doesn't really scare me. They seem like a lockdown Mike Evans, and you've got yourself.
Seems like a little.
Game.
Seems like a little pixie dust with them. The
But
pixie dust being thrown around. Although I mean, Mike Evans, they couldn't lock him down this past week, and then he broke loose. And there's something about Brady. I feel like it's a team like if you can get a nice lead against them, don't worry as much. If they hang around, they're going to find a way at the end. But I'll take my chances with that team because they kind of stink overall.
I'm not really sure I want any part of Green Bay right now. I don't want to say that they scare me, but they have clearly figured something out for themselves the last couple of weeks that they were looking for when we got them. I'm not going to say I'm going to be overly upset if we have to play them at some point in the playoffs. Green Bay may not even make the playoffs, so
it probably would be a conference final if we played them, right?
Sure. Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, if we're at that point.
I mean, that's irrelevant. I'm just listing the teams that are in it and who I would or they're not really way up there. I think they might be onto something. Detroit, I don't know. That was such a rough game to watch. I don't know if I really want to play them. Dallas, I agree with you, but still, I don't really like us matching up against that defense. Same story with San Francisco. I get it that that's Brock Purdy. I don't really want to line up against that defense. And I agree with you again with Philadelphia. By the time you get to them, whether they get the first round bye or not, I think Jalen Hurts is going to be back by playoff time no matter what. I think they're being overly cautious with whatever his deal is.
I agree.
Or not overly cautious, like that has like a negative connotation. I just think it maybe is ballooning into a bigger story because they're being cautious with it.
The teams that worry me the most are the teams that, can just throw the ball vertically and, potentially get lots of passing yards downfield. Those are the teams that scare me the most. And I guess, Aaron Rodgers fits into that category. Detroit fits into that category. San Francisco is just,
I don't really want any part of their running game. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, but they're kind of a unique case. They have, a couple of absolute studs, a solid offensive line, a good blocking scheme to what they do, and they're well coached.
Yeah. So going into scenarios here. Right now, it is Philadelphia is the 1 seed, San Francisco is the 2 seed, Minnesota's the 3 seed, Tampa Bay is the 4 seed. And then Dallas, Giants, Seattle, that's 5, 6, 7. We are locked in at 6. So this is going to be a bigger conversation for our next episode is, who do you sit, who do you play, because nothing we do matters in this game. Philadelphia, it does matter. They will gain or lose that 1 seed because Dallas is playing Washington. Well, okay, let's run through it. Philadelphia is playing us last week. San Francisco is playing Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think wins that game? San Francisco, Arizona. That's San Francisco, right?
San Francisco.
Okay. And that puts them up to 13-4. Minnesota is playing Chicago. I think that one could go either way the way Chicago's been playing.
Did I see something that Justin Fields may not play?
Oh. Well, if that's the case, I only kind of looked at this if everybody healthy played.
Mm-hmm.
But why wouldn't he? I mean, I know it means nothing,
I thought
but
I saw
what's the
something
point?
in passing that there was a decision about him, but I don't know. What do I know?
I still think Minnesota wins no matter what, even if Justin Fields plays. But I don't think that one's going to be super, slam dunky.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess if Justin Fields doesn't play. But either way, that keeps them at 13-4. Would you agree with that, Minnesota wins?
Yes, I do.
Tampa Bay has Atlanta. That's a Tampa Bay win, probably, right?
I have no idea what Tampa Bay. I mean, they look like.
I want to say that that's obvious, but
you know something. So you all know I'm from Tampa, and I have a lot of friends down there, and I'm on multiple text chains with different things, Gators, whatever. And for 2 hours and 45 minutes every single Sunday, my phone is clogged up with how much this team sucks, how awful the offensive coordinator is, how awful head coach is, how awful the defense is, blah, 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 blah. You would think this friggin' team was 0-15 right now. And then I look at the scores at 405, they've won. So, are they just lucky they have the greatest quarterback of all time who knows how to master the 2-minute offense like no one has ever had in history? Or are they just a team that is just kind of waiting for the playoffs to start to get serious? I don't know. So logic would say, well, they should beat Atlanta, but I don't know. I just don't know if this team's really any good or not, or they just get great performances at the end of games.
I don't really know, and the whole NFC South has been kind of a mystery all year. But I'm gonna say that Tampa Bay wins this game.
I'll say they'll win.
Yeah, and that'll put them to 9-8. They'll seal NFC South. They're gonna keep that 4 seed, I think. Mm-hmm. Dallas plays Washington. I mean, I can't imagine Washington winning this game. If they can't win when they unveil Commander Tutty or whatever his name is.
Are we certain Ron Rivera's back next year?
I'm not. I mean, I'm going to say yes because he's supposed to be a big part of their image turnaround.
Okay.
What? That's like an actual thing. I'm not just saying that.
I know.
He took charge. That's like a part of his responsibilities was.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
He had a bigger thing beyond the coaching. So yes, I think so. Do I think he deserves to be? I was thinking about that all day today. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I mean, I know.
But then again, I mean, look at what they were still competitive with Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke as their quarterbacks this year. I mean, when you consider that.
Yeah. But also, I think, he's catching a lot of heat for going back to Carson Wentz.
Yeah, and deservedly so. But, I mean, I don't know. Is there really could you make an argument that you go back to Carson Wentz to ensure that you don't want to re-sign him next year? I mean, you lost him halfway through the year due to injury.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that not a viable reason to start him in meaningless games in the stretch? Well, I guess it wasn't meaningless this week for them, was it?
No.
Okay. All right. Fair.
I mean, I'm just thinking let's say a Sean Payton's out there and is signals to, his people talk to some other people and say, that Washington job I think might be interesting.
Yeah. I don't think that's happening though.
I know the Sean Payton thing is we were discussing this yesterday, like where, what would be a good landing spot for Sean Payton right now?
Wherever he wants is a good landing spot because he has that kind of leverage. He can
Right,
sit
right.
around and keep his
Well,
network job until
what would be a good job that he would find attractive,
I
either
think
with
so.
either with a quarterback or the ability to get a high draft pick this year. So, I mean, does Washington fit that profile?
I would say no.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's going to take a job this year.
Yeah. I mean, there's
We don't
reports
know
and
what
stories.
jobs are available, but
Right. But also, in this league and some of these crazy owners, they just might launch somebody if they get whiff that Sean Payton's interested.
yeah, I mean, whatever.
Other people's problems for the just Commander show or whatever, not for our problem right now.
So I think Dallas wins, and that keeps them at 13-4, and it keeps them right ahead of us in the 5th seed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we are probably going to lose. I'm going just on face value, assuming everyone is playing. I think that, we're playing for nothing. Philadelphia is playing for something. Mm-hmm. We'll just go with it that we're going to lose. That'll put us at 9-7-1. Doesn't make a difference. We're staying right where we're staying, win or lose. Right. And then the interesting stuff happens at the bottom, which is kind of irrelevant to us because we're kind of only looking to the number 3 seed as far as what we play. But I think Seattle beats the Rams. I don't really know what the Rams story is this year, but Seattle may not be playing super well, but I do think they'll beat the Rams. And I think all Seattle needs to do is... No, Seattle needs to win and Green Bay needs to lose for Seattle to be in.
Okay, yeah. So if Green Bay wins, they're in?
Correct. I believe Green Bay controls their destiny, and they are the 2 other teams in the hunt. Green Bay plays Detroit, and that is really the game to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Who do you think wins that game? Detroit needs a Seattle loss and to win, and they'll be in. So they have everything to play for. And it's also Dan Campbell, so you can assume that they are playing. What do you mean, assuming it will be meaningful?
No, didn't you say somebody had to lose and then...
Yeah, but I think they'll play at the same time.
Okay.
So they won't know. They'll just have to assume it's meaningful.
So that seems meaningful? I mean, it's still Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah. They have the same record.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry. It is in Green Bay as well.
It's in Green Bay. I'll go with Green Bay. For 2 factors. 1, it's home, and 2, it's still Aaron Rodgers.
Man, I don't know. I don't feel strongly about this choice, but I'm going Detroit.
Ooh.
They just... I don't know. They've just been hot second half of the year. Green Bay looks like it's a little fluky, might be relying on just some random Aaron Rodgers magic. I don't know. I don't feel great about it. But regardless, everybody winning except us doesn't change a damn thing. Because if Seattle wins, well, right. I guess it matters. Green Bay or Seattle. That'll be the seed behind us playing the number 2 seed, which is San Francisco.
Right.
So which team of those, the Detroits, the Green Bays, and the Seattles, which team has the best shot against San Francisco in your opinion?
Detroit, Green Bay, or Seattle. That game's in San Francisco. I'm going to say Green Bay still. I still think, again, I'm still going with the best quarterback in those situations.
What if it's still Brock Purdy? Is it going to be still Brock Purdy?
I believe it's still going to be.
So I'm going to go with best defense there, and I'm actually going to say, I don't know, is Detroit the best defense?
Well, I mean, we saw them both. We saw all 3 teams up close and personal. What did you think?
At the time, it felt like we couldn't do shit against Detroit. Seattle just felt like it was the end of a stretch. I don't know.
They all seem pretty similar to me. Like this.
I don't know. I think San Francisco wins no matter what.
I agree.
That would put Minnesota and us together, which is kind of exactly what I want. I want that team. I don't want to dwell on that because we have a whole episode about that. Tampa Bay would then play Dallas. I mean, is that just a Dallas steamroll?
It could very well be.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And also, too, there might be 20,000 Dallas fans in Tampa for that game.
You think so?
Sure.
For a playoff home game?
Sure.
In the Tom Brady era?
It's a Tom Brady era, but it's not. It's weird down there. I mean, there's so many. The Bucks are not. The Bucks are kind of like the Brooklyn Nets, where they're a much bigger story and popular nationwide than they are in their actual local, hometowns.
Weird.
And there will be a lot. There will be a lot of Cowboy fans there, especially since you almost kind of know they're probably buying the tickets right now, assuming that's going to be the matchup.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very interesting playoff push. And Jesus, how cool. Can we just take 5 seconds to talk about how cool it is that we're even talking about this? We finally got to do an episode where we're talking about playoff scenarios.
It's really amazing. Again, we are going to do a whole segment, I guess, on our next show about how did we get here? Like, what do we think were the biggest reasons for this collective, amazingness? But yeah, I mean, this is why the NFL is so great and what we've been missing out on for the past decade. It's almost like there's giant football and then there's the NFL where all these other teams are participating in, when you watch, like, what's his name? Steve Kornacki, the guy on the Sunday night, the guy who does the board, like the percentages and everything, talking about all these different teams. And we're never on that board. And now we're part of the NFL. We're not just our own little thing. And, it makes everything just so much more exciting. I mean, I've never watched more going around Sunday Ticket than I have had this year. Usually it's just like, well, we're out of it. I don't really, need to watch the Dallas game. Who cares? But now it's like, well, what's going on with them? Or Seattle, have to check out that game and see what's happening. So it's great, especially since my Gators, shit the bed. I mean, it gives me hope for the fall again. It's great.
Before we segue into the last bit that we want to go over, can't say enough, piggybacking off of what you are saying, can't say enough about what the coaching staff has done from Brian Daboll all the way down to Mike Kafka, Wink Martindale, etc. Shea Tierney, you name a coach, they've all had a huge hand in this season. Do you think that Brian Daboll gets Coach of the Year? Gut feeling?
They vote on just regular season, right? They don't vote on what happens in the postseason.
I think so. I don't know. I don't actually care about this. I just wanted your opinion. So I don't really know the rules or whatever.
I think for the combination of what expectations were before the year and performance during the year, I mean, nothing surprises me, but I would be a little surprised if he didn't win. I mean, who else really out there is a real viable candidate for it?
Sirianni,
I guess, but he also might have the MVP of the league too, which really helps.
Well, I mean, would you credit him for making him that? I mean, people are crediting Daboll for helping fix Jones. So
right, but Daniel Jones is he's turned around Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones is not just he's not Jalen Hurts.
Just saying. I think Nick Sirianni could easily win.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I think. I think it's going to be one of those two, most likely.
Interesting. And you can't say enough about what Joe Schoen has been able to do with this roster. I mean, you think about the impact that guys that were brought in midway through the year, Landon Collins, Isaiah Hodgins, the impact that they've had on the year. So the big news actually happened before the game even kicked off. And this is news that we're going to be talking about for weeks, months, and probably we'll be talking about their impact for years. It was reported by Ian Rappaport before the game, just a couple hours before, maybe like an hour before I got to the tailgate, so probably like 9 in the morning, that the Giants offered or are offering both Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones multi-year contracts. So worth discussing. So that is the news. That is allegedly what's happening. So it doesn't really matter what our opinions are and if they should, because apparently they are. But nevertheless, how does that make you feel?
Well, I think it means that it. I think it changes the timeline of what they think this rebuild needs to be. If they were looking out, okay, it's going to take 3-4 years for this team to be really competitive again. I think they would have moved on from Daniel Jones. I said it before the season started, and I still believe it. What I said back then to be true. I really thought that they were just, they were giving Daniel Jones a look this year. I didn't think they were really committed. I think they were fully ready to move on for him. I think his performance this year um, has made them, you know, evaluate over a 17 game season, not just tape they saw, not just preseason, but, you know, firing bullets for a full season. They think they can win with this guy. And guess what? This team is making the playoffs with this guy, doing a lot of it on his own, shouldering a lot of the burden. Doesn't have the receivers, doesn't have a great offensive line, has one rookie tight end, all these things. And he's getting better and better and better. So that, the success of this season, I think, moves up their timeline of when they think they can really compete for a Super Bowl. The goal of this is not to make the playoffs. We're happy today, but this is not the goal. This is the first step. The goal is to win a Super Bowl. That's why all these guys are hired. And, if they think he's the guy, that's great. You lock him up now, and then you worry about those draft picks and those assets and other free agent money on filling other needs on this team, because there are other needs. But now quarterback isn't one of those, and that's one of the hardest pieces to find.
I feel like they have real. I agree with you. I think that they have now a clearer view of their window of a shot at the Super Bowl, and they apparently see Daniel Jones in that. I think that what I've seen this year, I don't think it's an impossibility. I mean, already going to the playoffs, and we're talking about the chance of making some noise in the playoffs with the garbage that's around him on offense. I mean, really, offensive line that is and in their first year of this offense as well, they've got a main contributor who was brought in here on November 1st on offense. They traded away a guy. They have a massive contract sitting on the bench as no part of this offense whatsoever. They are really, really, really just doing things with the seat of their pants, off the seat of their pants, and they're in the playoffs and making noise. Mm-hmm. I see no reason why they can't compete for a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones based on what I was seeing this year, and I understand that is this year is in a vacuum off of the other evidence we have of these players. But this isn't my decision. This is what they are doing, and I think they are basing it based on this one year because they're getting better use out of these two players than any other coach before them. I think that if they're going to do this, obviously they need to spend significant resources in the offseason bolstering that offensive line, getting Daniel Jones some more talented weapons to throw to, continuing to let him work with Mike Kafka, obviously, all those kinds of things. But as far as Saquon Barkley goes, I think they're going to need another running back, not just to be able to spell him in the event of having to miss time, but to give him just, if you want the longevity of Saquon Barkley, who has already endured 5 NFL seasons, albeit one with a torn ACL, all those treading on his tires from Penn State, I think that they need, the Matt Breida, but somebody more up to Saquon Barkley's level, something where they expect to contribute or maybe split
Think of
reps
Ahmad
more.
Bradshaw to a Brandon Jacobs.
Correct, yeah. And more so you get your money's worth and you're not wearing Saquon Barkley down to the tire tread.
Well, here's what I was thinking about Saquon. When I heard that story, my first thought was, okay, they may have offered each of these guys contracts, but how serious were they for each of them? You can make an offer to Saquon Barkley, which he's probably not going to take, or, or as opposed to Daniel. Like I think their priority is clearly Daniel Jones, getting him locked up.
I think their priority is both. I think this was a planned leak from the Giants organization right
I'm sure.
before a game that they felt confident they were going to win and clinch a playoff spot
Right.
because it goes over well.
Right. Like
So
the
the
leak.
fact that the leak I think comes from the Giants means that they are serious. No matter what the initial offer was, they are serious about both of these players being on multi-year deals. That's my opinion. I don't
And
know if you agree.
I also think they wanted to get ahead of what uh the feeling is going to be and the narrative. By you do this first, you seem proactive, like you want to keep Saquon Barkley. You know, it wasn't leaked what the offer was. It wasn't leaked whether he accepted or not. We just know something was offered. I think again, I as much as I love Saquon Barkley, there's a lot of risk with Saquon Barkley. And these like you said, he's 5 years into the league now. Um, you know, the track record of running backs in their big contracts, term isn't always fantastic. Uh, I, I said I think this is a narrative play more than anything, and I still would not be surprised if they end up just franchising Barkley when all is said and done after this, and then they figure it out.
I mean what happens, but like I said, we have so much time to talk about this,
Yeah.
and that is going to be what we talk about for a huge length of time. Whether we make noise in the playoffs, whether we win the Super Bowl, all that. I mean, we still got months of this. But I do want to talk about their injury concerns because that is a big part about offering them contracts, and that is something you brought up. I think it's important. Both of these players both have similar concerns. They have significant injury histories that have limited them in their time here. Daniel Jones had a scary neck injury. Saquon Barkley had a scary ACL injury. So there's concerns here. There's also production concerns. Saquon Barkley, we have wondered if he was worth big money. Daniel Jones, is he in the top 15? These are questions that obviously are a big part of them. So you and I are not big contract people, so I just went to what is a fair market deal according to people who do this, which is Spot Track. And we're looking at about a 4-year contract for Saquon Barkley for roughly $12 million a year, and something close to a 3-year deal for Daniel Jones, looking closer to $25.5 million a year. Do those sound like outrageous numbers to you? Just a short.
Just for the numbers, no.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I think those are workable numbers. And when you add it into next year, just adding the $25.5 million and the $12 million into what we already have in $57 million of cap space, that shrinks us down to $20 million in cap space. Remember, about $10 million at least is going to draft picks and wiggle room for the season. So that's really only $10 million on the market for wide receiver, center, tight end, linebacker, corner, safety. But there's other guys that, Kenny Galladay's as good as gone, right?
I would say so.
That would add $14 million, I believe, into the pool there. Leonard Williams is a possible candidate that could get cut too. That would add $12 million into the pool. Adoree Jackson is another big contract with a dead out. That would add something like $9 million in there. Those are all guys that could get in. So this is going to be a huge conversation going forward. But would you agree that those numbers for DJ and Barkley, they could build a playoff roster with those annual numbers, you think? It's tough, right?
Again, I think Daniel Jones, I'm in the belief you re-sign him, and if it's 25 million or it's 28 million, I think you do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to spend all that extra amount for Barkley, and again,
it's $12 million a year, but
yeah, but again, you took the number. We only have X amount left, and the names you're talking about are the names that are making this team a playoff team. If you have to cut Adoree Jackson, if you have to cut Leonard Williams, those are arguably, two of the 4 best guys we have on defense. You're making the decision by re-signing Daniel Jones that you think the window has started already, building off a playoff year. Those are pretty significant cuts where with Barkley,
Well,
it's one
Galladay,
loss.
it's not, but Williams and
Galladay's
Jackson,
not.
yeah.
Right. I
Galladay
don't
is
know.
actually a. If you sign Barkley and cut Galladay, it's still $2 million in savings.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't know.
I mean, but I think you make a good point, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I know Barkley's already making $7 million a year, and this is or made $7 million this year, and this is. I mean, it's still a $5 million increase. That's like doubling his salary.
Well, I guess we also don't, that's what the fair market value is. But again, what is he going to ask for?
Of
And
course,
what,
right.
And what is he going to settle for?
But that brings it all into a whole other conversation for down the road. But for now, I just wanted to throw the estimates around because there is a significant overhaul that's going to happen.
My short answer is they're going to have to prioritize one over the other, and to me, it's a no-brainer. It's Daniel Jones.
I agree. I think they're going to. I think they're going to bring them both back. I think we'll see both back next year. I just think they view the two of them as the engine. Now, whether that's a multi-year deal for both, we will see when it happens.
Yeah.
That is all stuff we're going to be talking about for months and months and months. In the meantime, we're going to be talking about the Philadelphia game. That's going to be a huge question on who plays, who doesn't play, because and that goes for both teams, whether or not Jalen Hurts plays in this game or not. So that's going to be that conversation on Friday morning for all of you guys. And we will see you all there on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, etc. And, of course, on YouTube. Until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.